them dressed up as a really good team, and the other one put on some aqua. Trade deadline. The Dolphins have already made all the moves. Will they make more? Stay tuned. Nate, what is this?
Little juju with the mixed match shoes. I'm digging it, man.
Okay, so Mason Rudolph back after a concussion a couple weeks ago. Guys, the Steelers were down 14-0 and then 14-3, and on 3rd and 20, the Dolphins blitz everybody, and Deontay Johnson, Peter from Toledo, Maxion, he gets it, and this changed it all. They sent 8. Booger McFarland on the call went apoplectic, and why you would ever do that, and yet this morning, Brian Flores stood by and said, that's the right call, do it again. Fitzpatrick, still in the league, still up 14-10. He's going to uncork the deep ball, and guess who gets this thing? Let's go to Fitzpatrick. What team did he used to play on? The Dolphins. He had 2 picks last night, was smiling through his entire post-game interviews. I got 2 picks. Doesn't matter who it's against. I think it does. 14-10, Miami still, though. Watch Juju. That's called getting mossed, as the kids say. They turn the guy's name into a verb. Juju had a big night.
I love that for him.
I did too. Yeah. We were waiting for it. Him and Rudolph got it going a little bit, and once the Dolphins went up 14-0, the Steelers just absolutely turned over. And it was, look, the final scores, we're going to get to it in a minute. It felt like it was 50-14. One more time, though, James Conner, another guy who had a big night. He ended up actually leaving this game with an injury. Tomlinson has an AC joint, looking more into it today. What's up, Roethlisberger? That's the story of this game. 14-0, and a very strange call on the defense, and there is your final 27-14. The Steelers rip off 27 straight points to kind of sort of stay involved in this thing, my friends. They get to 3-4, and here is always an all business Mike Tomlin after the win.
Oh, there's always that angst when you're coming off of a bye week of warming up to the action. I thought we could have started faster, not only with him, but you know, all of us. You know, I'd like to see our defense keep him out of the end zone when we turn the ball over, for instance. That's some area of complementary ball that we've been focused on. That was a failure. And so we all got to start faster.
14-zip. The Dolphins fell in the first, it was kind of crazy. Mason Rudolph then turned on his A game, and he tallied 237 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster had himself a day, and they looked pretty good. Tomlin also said after the game that running back James Conner suffered a shoulder AC joint injury. He had the sling on. He'll be evaluated. We'll get you the update later today. And hold on here on Good Morning Football for some waiver wire options with some bye weeks and injuries at that spot. But you look at this team, I mean, shout out Minkah Fitzpatrick for having himself a day, getting traded from the Dolphins to the Steelers, the number 11 overall pick, having 2 interceptions in this one. Was this a don't count us out performance by Pittsburgh?
You know, one of my favorite theories is the theory of a team being fake bad. Bill Parcells used to say you are what your record says you are. I kind of disagree. I think there are genuinely bad teams. We've seen some of them. They don't have good players. They do dumb things. And then there's teams that just had weird things happen to them, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who lost their Hall of Fame quarterback, guys. And after the New England game, they've lost by 2 points, 4 points, and 3 points in overtime to Baltimore. I think with that defense and with Mason Rudolph getting it going a little bit, something crazy is going to happen in the AFC. It hasn't exactly established itself. I think there's some wild teams are going to get in. And look out for Pittsburgh if they get hot, because the defense is awesome.
And one of the teams that might be fake good are the Indianapolis Colts, who come to Pittsburgh next week. I think that's the game I need to see. Like, it's one thing to beat the Dolphins. Dolphins are a terrible team. Like, they beat them last night, but they were down 14-0. Also, they were hanging with the Ravens. They beat a Chargers team that came in beleaguered. The Colts come to town next week. I'll judge it then. Now, one thing I will say about the Steelers, they've got a defense. They've got a defense. And the second half of that game, it was as ugly a performance from one side and as good a performance from the other. You look at the final few possessions of this game for the Steelers. It was interception, punt, turnover on downs, interception. They absolutely closed the door. So if they fall behind 14-0 to the Colts, they're not going to win that game. But if they can hang tight, they're certainly not going to get blown out by anybody. That defense is really good. If they can do this to any NFL team over the final 8 possessions, watch out. They've got some players, and they've got some ferocity. I think the Steelers are going to be in every game from here on out.
They're going to ruin it for some people. They're going to ruin some playoff too. For sure. They're that team.
They are, but I can't pencil them in as a contender yet until I see them play the Colts next week. That's a real NFL team.
Yeah, it's hard to catch a vibe on this squad with everything that they've been through this offseason, leading up to this year, Big Ben going down. You know, for those who were watching the show last week, I went to Pittsburgh to film a documentary, and I had a sit-down with Art Bruni. And it was funny because I got there early, and it's a Tuesday. So being a football player, I know how those Tuesdays are. There's only so many people that show up to the facility, and I wanted to see what the mood was like on individuals that I came across. Now, of course, they share the facility with Pittsburgh, the college, and these guys are jovial. They're young college students.
Of course.
They're popping out, and they're ready to go on with their lives. And every person I saw walk in or out of the Pittsburgh Steelers side, focused. And then when I ran into coaches, hey, what's up, Nate? How you doing? I shook their hands. I'm trying to gauge people's energy. And I walked away thinking, this isn't a team that's given up on the season. This is a team that realizes they've been through a lot, but there's still a ton of season left. And I think a prime example of the energy that they possess was how James Conner ran the ball last night. He comes into this game averaging just over 3 yards a pop. And for a guy who picked him to be one of the leading rushers in the league, I know we're going to do off to the races a little later in the show where we go for the rushing title here on the show. I was looking at James Conner. I was like, this is the individual that we thought he was going to be. And I get it. You could say it's up against the Miami Dolphins. But if they can go out there week in and week out, anchored by a strong defense and a powerful running game, I know he's a little banged up. We'll get more on that later. But I just love the fact that all of a sudden the Pittsburgh Steelers look like the damn Pittsburgh Steelers. And that was refreshing to a guy that hoped that this team would be one of the forces, not just in the division, not just in the conference, but in the NFL.
He was explosive. His pass protection was at a 10 last night, so that team is coming together. Hopefully the injury isn't serious. We'll have more on that from Ian Rappaport throughout the day, but the trade deadline is at 4 p.m. Eastern today. We've had a lot of movement leading up to this point. Let's bring in our guy, Mike Garafolo, in from New Jersey to give us a few names that we might want to keep our eyes on throughout the day, or you could just take your cell phone, go through the text, put it to the screen, and we could just read them ourselves.
I could do that, Kay, but I'll give you the verbal edition of the text. How about that? So we're looking at Trent Williams. That's the big one, because all along the 49ers, from the time that he didn't report to training camp all the way through the season when he didn't show up for the start of the regular season, have been saying that they are not going to trade Trent Williams, the Redskins that is, that they are not going to move him no matter the price. And then all of a sudden it came out yesterday that they were having discussions, or at least trying to figure out what teams would be interested in giving up. I still think the price is going to have to be high, and not just in terms of draft picks. I think you could see the Washington Redskins. You could see them look to try to get some kind of offensive playmaker for Dwayne Haskins on this one moving forward. So we'll see if they finally move Trent Williams or if he comes back. The other end of this is that he might not even show up if they don't move him. I know people have been saying, oh, he'll show up for week 10. That's no guarantee. Elsewhere with Washington, Josh Norman, they still owe him more than $5 million in salary this season. I'm not quite positive that a team is going to be willing to give up much for Josh Norman on this one. I still think that he is going to remain with the Redskins, has one more year on that big deal he signed a couple of years ago.
Redskins might be making some moves. Thank you so much, Mike Garafolo. We'll talk to you in a little bit throughout the morning here with breaking news as the trade deadline approaches. Carmen, we love you here on the show. Carmen's excited.
She loves trade deadline.
It's Halloween week.
She loves trade deadline.
Come on.
I thought it was one of those cassettes that plays the Halloween sounds.
Every 2-year-old loves Trent Williams stories.
I thought it was Trent Williams crying about his contract.
Triggs, what do you have to add? Trent Williams is very interesting.
He is. And all season, and it's like Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen are just going to dig their heels in. Okay, unless the final week of the trade deadline you give us something that barrels us over. The problem is we don't know if Trent Williams will show up for that team. Trent Williams, 32 years old. He's a veteran, offensive lineman. If he's not going to a true contender, is he even going to want to play for that team, or is he going to ride out the string? Here's some teams I would be looking for. The Raiders looking for defensive help. They still like they're very much alive in this thing, despite the loss this past weekend to the Texans. The Patriots, still another offensive weapon.
Of course.
If there's a tight end available, the Patriots, they might be willing to play. And then I would look at the two New York teams here, the Jets and the Giants, not so much as buyers, although they did have a trade yesterday, as sellers. If someone wants to blow them away for some of their veteran guys, I think both of those organizations might be looking to sell a couple assets and maybe pick up some draft picks.
Any cornerback help anywhere available?
Yeah, look, he didn't mention Darius Slay's name, but that's one of the top corners in the league. Detroit Lions, the word is that they might be looking to move him. But again, like Trent Williams, they would have to be really bowled over for that. And I don't know if anyone's willing to give that up. However, Slay only makes $10 million a year. It's kind of a bargain if you're looking for a number one corner right now.
More on the trade deadline. We'll give, of course, our hopes and thoughts. Like, where do you want? I mean, Trent Williams has been sitting up on our...
I know, we got to get him down. We used to have 6 holdouts. We only have 1.
Going up to Foxy?
Maybe. I think everyone's going to Foxy.
Just a bet. Sam Darnold had a rough 2 weeks. He's had a rough season, let's be honest. Why does one of us think it's about to get a lot better for the Jets?
Who's the one?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Bubblegum, and
Triggs is wearing Jets green today.